Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. This is your extra show for the week. My name is Cammy Bell. I'm your host, as always. We're going to be talking about transfers, and there's no way I could do an extra show about transfers and not invite along stalwart podder on Heart and Hand and our transfer guru, Simon Halloran. Simon, thank you very much for joining me.
Great to be here, Cammy, as ever. Cheers for having me back on. Cheers.
For people who haven't maybe listened to shows previously or don't listen across on our Patreon site, to give a little bit of a kind of explanation about what I mean by that, Simon loves the transfer windows more than kids love Christmas, more than I love getting a takeaway. It's just your absolute time to thrive. Simon, so I'm keen to get your thoughts on the January window, which obviously is now come and gone. Your thoughts on Rangers business and where it leaves us at the moment for the second half of the season.
I think the fact that we didn't do a live deadline day show kind of summed up the feeling to us.
I mean, you could have for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, we did, but we did hear at the start of the month from Patrick Stewart saying that it was maybe going to only be one or two in. Eventually, one came in. I think the bigger story is obviously getting bodies out the door, and whilst they may not be away full time as of yet, it's big wages off that wage bill, so it is a big saving towards the end of the season. Ideally, I'd like to see a couple more head out, but it is what it is. Defensively, I think people were still shouting for a central defender towards the end of the window, but Fernandes was brought in, Cial has emerged, and he doesn't look as if he's put a foot out of place so far. Balogun is still there, Proper's there, and obviously John Souttar's came back with a bang in the last couple of matches.
Yeah, the central defence one was an interesting one, I think, because I was excited, I have to say, back in the summer when Cial came in. I originally thought when he came in, he was coming in for first-team involvement. Obviously, it was the case that he was going to start to cut his teeth at the B team. He did have a shaky start to his time at Rangers, I think it's fair to say, but he's been given that opportunity due to, a defensive crisis to come into the first team. He's raw, but he's eager. He's got lots of energy. He plays for me, Simon, and again, you have to remember, I appreciate his pedigree, where he came from across Italy, in the background that he's had within football. But you've got to remember that he's played literally a handful of professional games now, and yet I think that he's really taken his chance well. I think he gives us something a bit different. Been able to play out defensively. I think one criticism I've had of Robin Proper, who, of many criticisms, I think it's fair to say at times, was that I just don't think he's got that ability to get the ball forward. He just enjoys being able to play it safe, whether that's the central defensive partner, potentially up to Tavernier or across to Jeffrey. Cial, for me, he does enjoy a good ping. He's already assisted.
Yep.
With some fantastic deliveries, and I could understand why we probably felt we had enough cover with him being able to come in, and I've got to give credit to him for taking that chance and making us rethink, whether or not we had to bring in a spare body there.
Yeah, this is absolutely, and that's the thing. He's come in, and as I said, he's not looked out of place. And the early season reports that people were saying about the B team performances, maybe he's come over thinking, yeah, I'm coming into the first team here, I'm going to be really getting my place right away. But no, he's come in and shown that he's really up for the challenge, and maybe he has felt a little bit, let's say, scorned at being overlooked at the start of the season, because he's certainly shown now that he's a player that should now be considered as a first team player going forward. Whether he maintains his place when everyone's fit, I would probably say on current form, yes. People keep saying, the next game's his biggest challenge. It's his biggest challenge. He's passing them so far with flying colours. I know we'll talk about the European squad shortly, and that's the true test of him. But for me, he keeps a jersey with John Souttar at the moment. Those two are the first choices for me just now.
And keen to get your thoughts on Fernandes. We've seen a little glimpse of him so far, and we are going to talk about another player who's obviously coming in the summer in just a moment. But a good acquisition, someone who I think is going to have to kind of bed in. We're going to have to give him time to kind of get up to speed, and maybe that opportunity may come on Sunday, as again we're about to talk about shortly. But I think Fernandes is an interesting one. It provides, again, some degree of cover, but it's been clear even from last summer that the key strategy is let's reduce down the average age of the squad. If we're able to get some deals and some bargains, then let's go for it. It'll be interesting to see how this lad shapes up.
Yeah, well, I think Leo signed him from the Portuguese team last January for about £1.5 million. So he's not made a first team appearance at Lille yet. So this is a player who's probably going to be, if he comes here on a full time deal, he's probably going to be sold for around about the same fee. We're looking at him just now, basically to get a closer look and training at him over the next couple of months to see if it's worth pursuing that permanent deal come the summer. You'll see Leon Balogun's obviously getting out a contract. I can't see him being kept on. Robin Propper's going into his last year of contract. John Suter would be going into his last year, albeit noises are that he's hopefully going to be signing a new one. But Fernandes, for me, he'll get opportunities. It won't come right away. Possibly the cup game. I would be tempted to err the side of caution that one, just play a full strength side and keep as much first team players as we can going, just to keep the win and run ongoing, even though it is Queen's Park, as we know. But for me, Fernandes looks okay. From the videos I've seen of him, he's on the ball, works really good. He's strong. He's pretty versatile as well across the back. He likes to bomb forward. That's what I noticed as well. A few times on Sunday alone there, he was liking to get forward, and that was a common theme throughout any of the videos I've seen of him as well. He's more than happy to come out the defence with the ball and really put pressure on opposite players, or just take the ball for a run like Bagheera did back in the day. But if we get half the player like that, then we're on to a winner. But I do like the look of him initially. It's really all about him getting to know us getting to know him over these next couple of months. And all being well, it looks as if it could be a deal that's more than achievable for us come the summer.
Yeah, and as we kind of touched on really briefly there as well, Rangers concluded their transfer business with the signing of Lyle Cameron from Dundee, going to come in the summer. Did cause a good bit of conversation, I think, amongst a lot of the Rangers fans, Simon, who were keen to be able to try and bring him in. And it lends into a conversation which I was keen to have with you about a little bit of kind of fast forwarding to the summertime. Because I think the concern amongst fans at the moment, which I think is entirely justified, is we are getting some success from players who I think had slow starts in the club when they first joined, where the manager, if he said, the players were just in the building once, he said it countless times. And so we need these players to be able to come in, if they're coming in the summer, to hit the ground running, because I think we've accepted now, begrudgingly, I must admit, that if we are in a transitional season, that's fine, we can deal with that. But ultimately, the minute this season finishes, we have to start preparation on a league challenge for next season. We need the players to be available for us. Now, I've got no doubts about Lyle Cameron, because obviously he's playing for Dundee. He's playing very well for Dundee, which obviously put him on our radar. There is a step up, undoubtedly, when you come across the Rangers. If he could do anywhere near as Connor Barron has done when he first came in for the club, then I'd be absolutely delighted. But we know that there is a difference. Basically, playing against teams in the Premier League for Dundee against playing against them for Rangers. But I think that it'll end up probably costing us similar to the Barron fee, probably about 500 or 600 grand. His potential for me is very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a player that I wanted in the actual January window. Obviously, with players hanging about, we couldn't move on. I think if Lawrence had went out, Cameron might have been one we'd have been able to get done and bring him in and bed him in for a couple of months. But he is an exciting player, Scotland under 21. He's a player whose ceiling continues to be upwards. I know he's been injured for the last couple of games there. Last night's game there against you-know-who, he was out injured for that. But he's a player who will add more depth to the squad, and it's the one thing we're sorely lacking just now. You see it when you see the bench. No harm to the young guys, but some of them are not ready yet. He'll come in, he'll take a squad place in the summer, and he'll fight for the jersey. I've got no doubts whatsoever he'll feature a lot of games next season. The basis of a squad is starting to come into, starting to form for us now. We've got two okay options in goalkeeper. I don't know whether we'd look to improve on that in the summer. I don't see it with Butland still being around. Obviously, you've got the right back question with Tav, who goes into the testimonial year, he'll be staying. The central defence looks pretty covered for me. Maybe one more comes in if Balogun goes. But there's so many good players now in that midfield. The midfield area is the one that's starting to get a bit stronger. You've got Diamande, Raskin, Bailey Rice starting to emerge as well. You'll add Lyle Cameron to that. You get Yanis Hadji hopefully going to hang around as well. Again, it's taken a lot of the players a bit of time to settle. We are starting to see some shoots of recovery this season, albeit, as you said, it's came too little too late. But hopefully it does stand us in good stead for the summer to kick on right away, because you've got these Champions League qualifiers going to be starting, is it late July, early August? Because we're getting into there's 3 qualifying rounds potentially for us to go through from the second round onwards. So we really need to hit the ground running. I'd imagine the manager's going nowhere. He's been backed. I think he'll be backed in the summer now. When you look at the savings that are there, that'll all add up as well. So the basis of a squad is there. It's taking that step now to the next level and bringing players in to supplement them in terms of the quality.
Yeah, and I think, when we talk about the players who have left, albeit the vast majority on loan, obviously, you're talking about some big earners in there, and despite the change of the structure within the club, obviously bringing in Patrick Stewart, I think that the direction of the club remains the same, which was we have to look at the wage bill, we have to reduce it where we can. We did a lot of work on that in the summer, obviously. The theme has continued with a bit of consistency in terms of guys like Rabbi Matondo going across to Germany, to Hanover, scoring an absolute belter in his debut.
We said it was going to happen, didn't we?
Yeah, I know. And listen, when you've seen guys like, Dowell go out, Davis go out, etc., these guys are going out on loan. So if they go out and they perform well and then it facilitates a deal, personally, I'm delighted.
Yeah.
Because, the manager made clear, especially, he called out Matondo and Dowell, a few weeks ago, saying that, they were free to find other clubs. So he is obviously moving beyond them. So whilst we can adjust, I wouldn't say trim, because I think we do have to backfill. We need to be able to get bodies. Rangers have not had their concerns to seek in terms of injuries across the course of this season. But we need to be able to look and really genuinely assess where some of these big earners are, and if they're not producing it for us and they're not contributing, whether that's because of poor form, whether that's because of injury, however you want to dress it up, we have to do that surgery. So my hope is that for those players who are out on loan at the moment, who have been regular first teamers previously, I hope that move does facilitate into permanent deals. And as you rightly say, our job then is to be able to backfill that. Now, I can understand to an extent if we want to be able to do that with some of the youth players that we can get involved. So guys like Bailey Rice and Finlay Curtis, as always, I temper that message with, we can't throw them in at the deep end. Sure. You can give them exposure, but you can't overcommit. So if you want to look at the positives for what we can achieve between now and the end of the season, we are going to give those players that opportunity. NCL obviously falls into that bracket as well, as we've mentioned. So it is there for them. And hopefully, if they have successful, the remainder of the campaign, then the onus is on us to say, can we rely on that player getting into season 25-26?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the one thing. And there will be games where the young players will start. Bailey Rice, I'd imagine this is going to be a start for him at the weekend there. Finlay Curtis, probably just a little bit more back in terms of the development, but as you say, he's signed that new contract, so he's going to get more minutes. You'd imagine he's been promised some more minutes on the back of signing that as well. So these two boys, there's definitely squad places for them going forward, and in Rice's case, I would expect him to, from maybe next season almost, to be pushing for a starting jersey. It's good options to have. You've got to remember when Rice came in, he was a bright light at the Motherwell Youth Academy. He was higher rated than Lennon Miller, who gets all the plaudits now. But had Rice stayed, he'd probably be playing week in, week out, and the two of them would be getting that sort of Scott Brown, Kevin Thompson treatment that they did at Hibs. That would be the battle between Rangers and Celtic, trying to sign those two. So it is good that Rice is already here. We've been developing him over the last couple of seasons. So for me, he's got a really good chance. He's a star in the making for us. I'm looking at other areas of the park as well. We had loan players last season. We had Abdallah Sima on loan. We all said, how are we going to replace his goals? Well, Václav Černy's replaced his. are we going to be able to afford him long term? That's the one thing. It doesn't look too good in that respect. Then you look back to the prior loan signing was Sima, as I mentioned. He started off in France this season like a house on fire, and he's completely dropped off a cliff through. I don't know if it's the manager just doesn't fancy him or what now over there. So Brighton were obviously hoping for his value to skyrocket so they could sell him on for a big fee. But sometimes a player just finds somewhere that they like and make it a home. And that was certainly Sima at Rangers. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something that can get done to bring him back to Rangers in the summer. Maybe as a replacement for Czerny, but how good would it be if we had a front three of Sima, Igaman and Czerny to start us off next season? That's something I certainly would love. Sima as a player, loved him when he was here, and something tells me I think we might go back in for him this summer.
Yeah, there's the possibility is there, and I never heard or felt any ill will from him when he had to leave. I think he enjoyed his time at Rangers, and I think that would be a really interesting one to look at as well. Personally, I'm disappointed that we lost Zach Lovelace.
Yeah,
there has been a lot said and done about Zach Lovelace, so I do understand the counter argument to say we had to make the deal with Millwall. There were family reasons behind it as well, so again, totally respect that as well. But again, there was elements of that where I would have been quite happy that if offers had come in for Cyril Dessers, for example, could we put Lovelace into that third striker position? There's a lot of back and forth in that because you will put a lot of emphasis on him, assuming that you can keep Danilo fit. The proof is very much, not necessarily there to back that consistency from him, but we will have to wait and see what happens. Simon, let's talk a little bit then as we're recording late on Wednesday night, so we're not yet at the deadline for the European squad. That is due for submission Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be done by the time that everyone gets a chance to listen to this. We've got 3 replacements that we can put in. I'll be honest with you, I'm struggling to see beyond Nsiala, Danilo and Hadji.
Yeah, I think that's the 3 that's get in. Danilo, if he can get fit, that is. I don't really know who else is there to take a space. All the ones that were there have gone. Cortez is still in it. He's still in the European squad, even though he's injured again. But yeah, I can't see past those 3. Danilo's a good option to have if he can stay fit. I mean, you've seen how well he done when he was actually fit for that 6 weeks or so that he was there. He was contributing. He was linking up well with Igaman. Dessers is kind of taking that mantle on now as well. So it would be a good option to have. On form, I would still play Danilo. But Igaman, you can see at the weekend there he was slightly frustrated playing that role. I don't want to see him out there long term just to accommodate Dessers on the side because he's a player that's not going to be here long term. But Igaman for me needs to go back central, so that's why I would probably have Danilo in. Hopefully he gets fit and the two of them can work off each other.
And we can't be glib about where we are with the European squad because obviously fantastic achievement of missing out. The player ties were straight through into automatic qualification, obviously. I was trying to get my head around, and I think I need to imprint it in my brain about the potential route to the final and who we could theoretically play. Obviously, Man United and Spurs come back into that equation. So we do need to make sure that we get that decision right. And as much as the manager may have some food for thought, there is a part of me that thinks it could be relatively straightforward in terms of bringing those guys back in. I agree with you, by the way, on the Igaman out on the kind of wider channel. Yeah. I think that he gets, and we have to take his age into account, I do think he does get frustrated because his immediate thought is that he just wants to be able to attack and get through on goal. And when he's playing off-centre, that becomes harder for him to do. Mm-hmm. But that's not, going to stop his contribution to the game. It's not going to stop what he wants to be able to do in terms of the position that he's asked to play and how much he can get out of it. He has obviously missed a good portion of the season, so he'll be keen just to be involved. He'll just want to ensure that he's in, playing games. However, we are going to have to put together a squad that, for me, gives us the best possible opportunity to progress as far as we can. I know we've lifted our heads up to say, can we get to quarterfinals? And to a certain extent, when I think about Manchester, when I think about Seville, whilst I don't necessarily think that the semi-finals were easy games, I don't mean that at all. But your mind does start to wander a little bit towards, well, if we can get through a quarter, we're within real touching distance, and we've proven that we can absolutely step up to be able to meet that match. If we could get to Bilbao for the final, wow.
Yeah, there's still a couple of players there as well that have got that experience of going deep into European competition as well. So I mean, even look at Dessers. He's got to a Conference League final with Feyenoord at the time. So there's players there that know, that have been over the course in major European trophies, that can get to finals. It's taking that next step and winning it, as we know. But I mean, we should have no fear if we can. I think we're away from home first in the last 16 tie. It's all about being compact away from home and then taking it to whoever it is in the home leg. I know that is it 20s, one of the teams, they've actually got a fan ban for their next home game. They've got to play with one stand shut for the home support. So hopefully it's somebody like them. But yeah, it's going to be a difficult route, but there should be absolutely no fear. We should embrace it, and what will be will be.
And as we've talked about, since the qualifying stages had finished, when we came out the group, I should say, not the qualifying stage, but the group, you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
There'll be nobody within the competition, genuinely nobody, who will want to come to Ibrox.
No, definitely not. And you've seen probably even from the results here, Lyon game accepted, but we've had pretty good results overall in every home game in the Europa League this season. You look back to...
And people, sorry to interject, because I know that Lyon is almost the outlier.
Yeah.
But the thing people need to remember, we very easily could have been 2-0 up against Lyon within about 15 minutes. What happens on the night and you take your chances, of course, that's a whole different conversation. Now, I'm not saying for a single minute, by the way, that Lyon are not a quality side. I understand that. But it feels a lot when you look at that game in isolation and the result, that as if it was a walkover for them. I kind of contest that a little bit, because, again, Rangers were not out of the game, and as I say, very, very possibly could have had quite a comfortable lead early doors.
Yeah, you look at the other results in the group. It's the first time that a Scottish team's ever won over in Sweden. That was us, the 2-0 win over at Malmo. We should have probably beat Spurs that night, and they won each game. We should have got a result over Travis. So we're holding our own and more at this level. That's the thing. And the only sort of omen that I can look to is the last two times we've got to a European final, we've played and been beaten by Lyon in the early stages. So that's the one to look at for me.
Yeah, that's clinging on to that positive in it. But listen, we'll all be delighted if history repeats itself. Simon, just to finish up, because it's going to be a quick show this week. Thankfully, I don't have too much to talk about, because Rangers have got a little bit of a hiatus from midweek fixtures, thankfully, because it gives us plenty of time to help players with recovery from injuries, give some of those players a little bit of lighter training who have featured. And the manager has made mention, we're not taking time off from it. Everyone's going to be continuing to work. As we welcome Queen's Park to a 3:30 kickoff on Sunday at Ibrox, as we go into the next stages of the Scottish Cup. The Scottish Cup draws have been kind to us. I think that's fair to say. And again, I come back to that word that I've used a lot across the course of this season, which is opportunity, and specifically around some of the younger players that we've mentioned, maybe some of those guys who have sit on the periphery and haven't been able to get as much game time as they would like. Keen to get your thoughts on our approach to it, and if there's any players that you would really like to see feature.
Yeah, I'd probably be a bit cautious, as I said earlier. I would play Nsiala, I would play Bailey Rice, but apart from that, I'd probably go with as strong a team as possible, and that's the thing. Just now, it's who do you pick? Because the amount of injuries we've had recently, Queen's Park are actually, they're not too bad a team for where they are in the Championship. I know they're still pushing for that last playoff spot. They're 5-6 points off it just now. I think Partick Thistle are just ahead of them in that regard. But they've had a good couple of seasons in the Championship. They're not a bad team. I'd anticipate that we will win 3 or 4-0 right enough, to be honest. But it is one to make sure that we've got the right team on the park to start with. I mean, you've seen in the past teams that have put out a whole patchwork team and it can go horribly wrong for them, having to go to extra time. I mean, look at a couple of weeks ago, Spurs in the FA Cup having to go away to extra time against whoever, was it Tamworth or somebody like that. So it's all about putting the right team on the park and being professional enough to get it done. I do think there should be space for Bailey Rice and Clinton Nsiala again. You might see Liam Kelly get a run in goals.
I was actually, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, was who do you put in the nets? And I think that's a tough one. Jack Butland has not been in great form
He needs to
whatsoever.
try and play himself back into it somehow.
Yeah, and listen, I agree with you. There is absolutely, no way I can foresee anything other than a Rangers victory and a strong victory on Sunday. I don't imagine Butland will be that tested. It will be an interesting choice for the manager, though, as to whether or not he does decide to take him out, given the opposition, or whether or not he says to him, "You need game time. You need to get your confidence back up. Let's see how we can do that." Because I also think on that front as well, I think John Souttar will play purely just to help him get more minutes in his legs, and that in itself, I think, gives Jack Butland confidence. However, Liam Kelly, for me, I don't think he's done too much wrong, if I'm being honest.
Not really. Maybe the game against Hibs, he could have been a bit more commanding in his box, but I mean, the defence was an absolute riot that day in particular, but so it's hard to really put blame on one individual player. It was just one of those mental games, the 3H game. But I wouldn't have any problem with Kelly coming back in. As I said, he's an experienced player. He's a Scotland international, former Motherwell captain, so he's a player that's been over the course as well. So yeah, I would probably give him a start in this one, but as I said, Inciala, Bailey Rice, and then you probably go with Dessers and Igaman again, unless Danilo's fit enough for a place on the bench.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would be playing Danilo in this one. If he is fit, brilliant. But at the same point, we need to bleed him back in. So I wouldn't start him if he is fit. I would give him a little bit of the kind of game time, give him 30 minutes or so just to get some of the rust off. But yeah, most important thing for me is let's just make sure that we've got a team out there that, as you say, we won't take them lightly. We have to give them due respect. As you say, it's a mid-table championship team. It's not a Fraserburgh again. So we do need to take it seriously. And for nothing else, this looks like, our best chance at a domestic trophy. And similar to Europe, as much as we can, be comfortable with how the draws have went so far, we also can't be complacent.
No, we can't. And on the flip side, where you can say, make a couple of changes and prepare for the bigger tests ahead, it would be pretty remiss to talk down Queen's Park. As I said, they've had a good couple of seasons there, so we know the threat that they'll pose. But yeah, it's one at the end of the day we shouldn't really have too much problem over. So it should be an easy path into the next round, and as you say, a home draw in any cup tie for us should be a must win, an easy win in that regard against most teams.
Yeah, if we could do exactly the same as we, saw last Sunday against Ross County, get the game, get the contest over, and then we can start to see what else we can do in terms of bringing some players in to help out with their various return to the first team and injury recovery as well. So it will be interesting to see what the manager comes with. And there's a massive game at Tynecastle a week on Sunday as well. So that will be a true test. And I'll be back with you guys next week to cover that on next week's Extra as well. David will be back with you on Monday with the flagship to unpack the Scottish Cup game against Queen's Park. If you can't wait until then and you want to be able to get all of our match day coverage, which we have over on our Patreon site, please head on over to patreon.com/heart and hand. Thank you to Zenith Coins, our show sponsor. Their support is always appreciated. Thank you to you all for listening. And Simon, thank you very much for coming on. I'm sorry, buddy, that Christmas time is over for you, but listen, the summer window will be here before you know it.
Yeah, it will, and we've got a good couple of months in the Cup to run, and then we've got hopefully a wee run to the final in sunny Spain again, so bring it on.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed. We'll speak to you again soon, folks. Thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye.